Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. In this video I'm going to show you how to update to the newest version from previous versions. And to that end I've prepared first a warning. I'm going to be playing with the Spidertron. If you are an arachnophobe and the Spidertron triggers you, please pause the video and tell me that you need a Spidertron-less version of this video. Otherwise I'm not going to bother investing the time and energy into making one. But if you do actually need it, please tell me. Right. So for the purpose of updating the M&M system, I have created this little book here, Outpost Upgrading Tools. And this has a whitelist over here of the things that you want to delete. And it excludes things like power poles and roboports, as well as storage chests and passive provider chests. It does not exclude requested chests, that's by design. And it also deletes trains. So what you want to do is you want to first get rid of all... Okay, so the first thing you do is you get rid of the packed train in your depot, and if you are on one of the previous versions, you probably want to get rid of the entire depot anyway. You also want to get rid of all your supply trains and of all your artillery trains. The artillery trains I strongly suggest you delete within their outpost. That way you have the materials close by and your trains won't have to make as many trips after updating. Once you have deleted all the supply trains and all the artillery trains, you can delete your depot. And once you have deleted the depot, you're going to take this print, the player's depot skeleton, and you're going to get the new trains for supply, the builder trains. And that's important because they have a different schedule now compared to any previous version. And then you can also print your depot anew. And after that you can go around and whoops, I did not mean to move the train. And after you have done that, you can go and delete your outposts, all of them. There's one issue. In addition to just simply taking the deconstruction planner from the little book, you also need to then delete these two power poles, big power poles. Sadly, I can't make them part of the deconstruction planner because I don't want to interrupt the power to the robopods, right, as well as to the stations or train yards. So first delete the entire outpost and then delete these two power poles as well in every outpost. So you're going to have to go through every outpost twice, sadly. Once you've done that, okay, you can then go and simply build the new blueprint, right, just from the map. And I would suggest that you do not build too many at the same time, because of course all of them are going to want the artillery trains refilled or stocked. Let's just give it some time, let it build. And actually I made a mistake. The first thing that you do, you just build one new outpost. And the idea here is that you can tell on the bottom right what it is that you're lacking in materials, what you need to ship to that outpost. So let's let the bot deconstruct those three outposts again, and just build the one. And then we mouse over in the bottom right, and so far I can see that we are lacking 10 tiles. This number is going to be different depending on what version you're on. So what you will most likely need is several hundred tiles and possibly some constant combinators. Although my recent versions have, generally speaking, reduced the count of combinators. So if anything, it should only be tiles that you need, but I'm not entirely sure because I don't have any of the really old version outposts anymore, so I'm more or less just guessing here. Okay, so basically I'm done here with building. The only thing that's missing are these 10 tiles. So I'm going to go, and I already think I have one prepared down here. I do. I'm going to prepare the trains with that. Send one out to the outpost. And prepare to turn it off. Oh. It's in the trash mode is engaged. I don't want that actually. Not sure why that's engaged, but let's fix that. This one. No, the other one. Alright. I need to watch this in the other outpost if that continues happening. I don't think it should. I don't think I have anything here that could cause the trash mode to engage without intention. That would be strange, but we'll see. Alright, so we've unloaded the train and we've got the tiles. So far so good. Now, next thing to do is to turn on the bax train and the artillery train. Okay, what I can also do is I can turn this station off now, because it has been supplied with the additional materials, right? Alright. Now this train is going to go home and get rid of all the trash items in here. You'll notice that comparatively to any previous version, I've changed the default loadout over here to just the bare minimum. You'll want to change that depending on your local needs. So this is just a train yard and it's not near any enemies, so it really only needs fuel essentially. I'm gonna leave the artillery shells in the train, not even going to unload them. I just make sure that I have these artillery guns ready to go if I need to. I don't know, because manually they do have quite a bit of reach, and could be useful to have artillery shells on this train. But other than that, I only have the absolute bare minimum, right? Compared to something like defensive wall over here, where I actually use this, either this loadout or this loadout. In this case, because I also have miners here, so I want miners and productivity modules available nearby. But why do you, aside from the first one where you're just building the single outpost to get the idea of what materials you need for every outpost, why do you not want to build all your outposts in one go really quick? You can, but if you do, you're going to have a ton of artillery trains moving to supply themselves. And if you have more than 5, you're going to end up with traffic jams probably somewhere. And what happens with traffic jams is that the artillery trains start repathing, right? So in this case, the first artillery train goes in, leaves the base, and when it got in, it turned its outpost on, it leaves the base, and it's stuck in a traffic jam somewhere. Meanwhile, the next artillery train goes in, also turns on its outpost. Now the issue is that the artillery train, the first one that's still stuck in traffic, recalculates after just 5 seconds of waiting at a chain signal, right? Somewhere, say here. And after those 5 seconds, it might be that the newly enabled second outpost is actually closer than the one it originally was going to, so now the train goes to the other one. It doesn't break the system. All that happens is that the train goes in there, is forced to leave as soon as basically the outpost is done loading the train with more trash or taking out what it needs. But during that time, of course, the other train was already finished and it also goes to the wrong outpost, right? In that way, you can cause a not quite infinite loop of trains going to the wrong outpost, because eventually the correct train is going to go into the correct outpost and turn it off. So it does settle itself. And if you have only like 5 trains, it settles itself reasonably fast. But if you have 20 or 30 or 40 outposts, it can take hours for it to settle. To fix that, I've basically added, so this uses Nixie mod tubes, but you can easily replace the tubes with proper displays. I'll show you in a second how to do that. But what you can do is, if you want to sort out your trains manually, and that will only take you a few minutes compared to the hours it would take to leave it, do it automatically. What you do is you use this display over here. It's also in the Outpost updating tools book. This is the one that goes into your station here, right? Just print that there. And then you see whichever train is currently in the depot. That's the number that you see here. You can also set an alarm over here. If you say, okay, I want to receive an alarm when the train with this ID is in the depot, because you happen to know, okay, the ID of that train belongs to, say, this outpost, then you can come in here and simply wait until the train is done loading and then control click it to that outpost easily from wherever you are. Generally speaking, I don't use this much, so I'm going to turn this off. And the other part is, of course, Outposts upgrading tools is, of course, this one. And this one goes into each one of your outposts right down here. And here you can see the ID that is saved in this combinator. That should be the ID of the train that is parked in the station, right? And what you basically do, so this train should be leaving now because it has been loaded. There's still a bunch of trash, and this will get loaded into the train as time goes on. Right here you can see the train that is currently in here is the 5213, and I should have only one other outpost enabled now. Here, that belongs here. And we can see 5213, indeed, that is correct. So the train will go there now. And this is the train from that outpost nearby. It'll dock itself into the station, and I can basically sit here and look what's the ID, 5629, and then we can just go to the different outposts and check which one has it. I know this is the one. So what I do is I just simply open this up, ready myself to control click into the correct one, and you can see here's the wrong train in the outpost currently. So what I'll do is I'll simply wait until this train is done loading. This will take a moment for all the artillery shells to be loaded. And there it's done. So I'm going to control click this right in front of the outpost it should go to. In this case, it automatically moved there. The only reason for that is really because the other enabled outpost is so far away, right? Way up here. And trains that are waiting in a station while the station is enabled just add a little bit of a path penalty to the path calculation of any other train that wants to go there. And because the distance between this station from the depot and from the depot to this outpost is way bigger, that path penalty is not enough to make the second train actually choose the further station. So in this case, it would have been fine. Immediately as soon as this train went in, it would have turned the station off. This train that doesn't belong here and is basically just here picking up trash will move back to the depot. And then while the station is still disabled, the train will actually then be forced to go to the far station, which is also where it belongs, right? But if I don't want to do that, what I can do again is here simply, you can see here it's being loaded with trash. That's why the timer is going there. You can of course simply control click here, check that the temporary station is above the maintenance unload station. And that's how I'm manually sorting out my trains. This is not necessary for you to do, especially if you don't do major outpost replacements all over the place at the same time. If you just do a few at a time, you basically don't need to do this manual stuff at all. But it's there if you're doing, if you want to go fast, or if you just have a lot of traffic jam build up because you slightly overdid it, build a couple too many outposts. Just 4 is fine. If I also add these, I might still be fine, or I might have to actually do the manual sorting. But if I did all of these, I would probably get, I don't know, 2 hours worth of traffic of trains cycling each other, right? So this system is not exactly designed to support a ton of trains trying to go back, or especially if I did all of these. Right, so in this case it would actually sort itself out fairly nicely because they have all linear distances, and eventually the train just cycles through correctly. But yeah, the station system is basically designed so that you usually, 99% of the time, your trains are just stuck in their outpost and they don't ever leave. Only the ones that actually actively support the defenses and have a lot of trains moving and therefore need a lot of fuel, they will occasionally send the trains back. I don't know, maybe once or twice an hour. And in that case, the system of stations turning on and off works perfectly, right? It works really well. It just doesn't work as well when you have all your outposts sending trains at the same time. That's just a huge amount of traffic that you may need to sort out manually if you want it to settle within a few hours. And if you do it manually, it just takes minutes, really. But yeah, you get the idea. Right. So you're going to have a lot of traffic when you're updating, because unless you were using these minimum loadouts by default anyway, so if you always replace the default loadout with minimum loadouts, then you won't have a lot of traffic. But if you were using these as default loadouts, they were previously default loadouts, right? If you still had those, then you're going to have a lot of traffic at the start, because of course your outposts want to switch out the are going to recycle the trash. So the trains are going to be loaded for several minutes each time, because that's not a lot of throughput, and that's intentional. Generally speaking, you don't need much trash throughput, right? The newest blueprint has 2 chests. You saw that over here. So that both the wagons actually do get used as trash wagons. But generally speaking, this is going to take several minutes to fill up the train with trash before it goes back. But if you have it running in a lot of outposts, there's still a lot of trains every few minutes, and those are going to eventually cause each other to just lock up and, well, not lock up, not permanently, but they're going to delay each other enough that you're going to have the wrong trains going to the wrong stations, until eventually the right train arrives in the right station and turns that off, and therefore removes that station from the cycle along with that train, right? In that way, eventually the system does settle. But as I've said multiple times now, it takes a while. Right. That's actually pretty much it for updating. The resource stations themselves, if you've been using version 7, there's no updating to be done there. If you've been using version 6 or earlier, then yeah, it's a major update. You're going to have to delete your stations because the circuitry has changed, and you're going to have to add these train yards for every resource. You can see how that works in the how-to video, the previous video. And finally, I've also added slim versions, low throughput versions of the unloading stations. Right, so these are basically the same stations, approachable by the same trains as any of the other unloading stations of their resource, but these are basically designed to have a train always present in this in the station until the train is empty, and then sits for one new train. And these are bot served, and the idea is that these are enough to supply a mall, right, or maybe a depot. Oops, sorry. These are enough to supply your depot, but not any real factory, like, unless it's like a really low throughput factory. And I didn't go through these in the how-to video. I probably should have, but whatever. The usage is very simply, you simply build the station, you rename the station into the resource, and then you put into this combinator what item you want and how many of that item you want. So in this case, I want to have 16k landfill available in the local logistics network, right? It doesn't read the chests, it reads the entire logistics network. In this case, the train isn't unloading anymore because I also have a bunch of landfill around the depot and stuff like that, right? Okay. For updates, that's pretty much it. Ah, yes, one thing I should probably still mention. This collision ID readout. Oh, yeah, right. I also wanted to show you how you can replace the modded display with vanilla displays. I'll show you that too before I forget. So in this case, the displays aren't being delivered. But what this display is for, it reads out the collision ID that is in this combinator, right? You can see the green wire is connected up there and the display connects here. So the green wire, it reads this combinator, the yellow square. And what this is responsible for, it gives this remote sort of a pseudo-random ID. And the random ID is built by, this combinator keeps track of all global transmissions and simply adds them together into a value. So if you have two remotes that were built at the same time between transmissions, then it can happen that you have two remotes with the same random ID here. And the issue with that is if both of these remotes are trying to transmit a signal in the same tick, they can put each other into an endless loop of constantly trying to resend their information package, but neither of them can actually succeed because they always hit the same delay, right? My system works in such a way that if it tries to transmit data and it detects that another remote or another source was also transmitting data in the same frame, it'll simply wait a random delay and then try again. And this means that even if you have multiple sources trying to transmit at the same time, eventually they will have different delays and therefore they will all eventually succeed and the traffic jam or the collisions basically disappear. And this random delay is created by reading or by adding together all transmissions over the global network, making a number out of them, and then using a modulo to divide with a local number that has also been created by local transmissions. So basically I get the remainder of division of global transmission divided by local transmissions, and that's then the delay in ticks. The issue with that is, again, if you have two remotes with the same number, with the exact same number in here, like our single digit difference is enough, but if they are exactly the same number, then you end up with exactly the same delay every time. And to avoid that from happening, to stop that from happening, I've created two systems that help there. So one is this here, and I've already talked about this in a previous video, I think the first video of the series. But what this basically does, every time it detects a new remote, it sends a global transmission. Just a single black square, and that's enough, right? And what that means is that if you build a new remote, it immediately gets updated by one in that combinator I just showed you over there, right in the remote, the one that tracks the global transmissions. And if I build the next remote, that happens again, which means the new remote is set to 1 and the previous remote is set to 2, or +1 basically on top of whatever it had previously. And that, generally speaking, ensures that no remote ever has the same number as any other, even if they're built close together, because usually the bots don't manage to print both remotes precisely in the same tick. Usually there's a difference, and that difference is enough for this to work. And the second system is over here, a 1-minute timer that simply updates all memories with the stack sizes of each item. And that is sent once per minute, and because it is a global transmission, that also always contributes towards this number in here. And those together basically should very nearly, but not 100% guarantee that you never get the same number in any of these combinators anywhere ever. Not even the same outpost, even though this and this together almost doesn't matter, because these shouldn't, even if these two have the same number, it shouldn't actually matter ever. You'd have to have a very unlucky situation for these two to hang up on each other. It can happen, but it really shouldn't. But even so, these two combinators should never get the same number by default, simply because I can actually just print this one over here too, and then have the train deliver the displays. I'll just show you. There you go. And that's the displays. Should be 8 of them. That's correct. Alright. And once you have the displays in there, we will see a slight difference. 64, 51, that's a difference, right? And in this case it's not connecting because I imagine the bots didn't put this down appropriately or something. This should be working, but it's not for whatever reason. Oh well, we can see here there's a difference here, right? That's good enough. Only the last digit has to change, even if they're both in. Now it's working. 2 million. 2 million. We can see that the other numbers are different, and that's good enough. And this is how it basically should look all the time, even in the two remotes that you basically build at the same time, because that's the outpost you print. It still should be a big enough difference. Okay, so once you have... Okay, I wanted to show you the display, but once you're finished with all the outposts, you can go to this global trash engage and simply toggle this, which turns on the trash cycle in all the outposts that currently have items. So there's a bunch here you can see, and all of these will then get emptied out one by one from your supply trains. And we can see here that it's counting down, and this will continue to happen as the stations are being emptied and turn themselves off. Once this is back down to 0, you know that all your trash cycles are finished. You can also go on the map and you can simply look if there's still any outpost setups enabled, right? Alright. And that alarm you hear, the new objective alarm, that basically just tells you that trash cycle has finished somewhere on the map. Alright. About these displays, so of course you can use vanilla displays if you're not playing with mods. Just put that here, right? And we need more digits, so what I do is I simply copy this over. Right, and in this case 4 is probably enough for the train ID. You might want more digits, and you might have to find a better place for these, maybe over here or whatever, right? But yeah. And this is the combinator that tells the system what to read, what signal to read, and the train ID is delivered over via T, and I simply connect that across. And finally I need to ensure that my digits are cross-connected correctly, and first thing first, you'll notice a bit of a difference from the initial digit to every following digit, right? This is the initial digit, and it has two differences. One is this, and the other one is that one of these combinators, this one, is rotated the other way. So I simply go and check which way the wire goes. It goes from output to input, from output to input, and output to input. And over here, we go from input to input. Okay, input to input to input. And now these are cross-connected, and we currently don't have a train in here, that's why it's saying 0. And I can also change the color if I want, right? I don't know, something easier to read, maybe yellow. And let's just send a train so we can see it work. See the display work. Yep, 5629, 5629. And that's your vanilla display. And I suggest you use one of these two, because they have this handy combinator. You can of course also use these, but then you're going to have to figure out where to put in the signals, right? And the I is the one that you replace with whatever you want to track in all these combinators, right? Otherwise, and down here too. So there's more I here, and this one you can basically either leave as it is, or you can replace these with the correct signal that you want to track. But this combinator just makes it nice and easy on you. All right. And that's it. Thank you for watching. If you're wondering, these are from the Nixie Tubes mod. Alright. Talk to you.